Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Cassie speaking. Well, my thoughts have been, for some time now, have been going around the Christchurch attacks, and you hear all sorts of things. Oh, it was actors, and this and that and the other. I just like to see the facts there in front of me. So I started doing my own research and found out that the Christchurch terrorists, so-called terrorist Tarrant, had gone to Turkey on several occasions before and after and during the revolution there, where tourists were told, Westerners, not to go to Turkey. It's very dangerous. Tourists are being kidnapped, killed. But Tarrant seemed to be very safe in going to Turkey and even stayed there for 42 days. Now, that's what the Turkish authorities have actually published. The other thing is that in the 17 questions to the Royal Inquiry to the Christchurch attacks, there are 17 community questions to the Royal Inquiry that are answered within that content. So they're available for everyone to look at. You're not breaking the law by going there. And it was there that I saw that, well, the Muslims in Christchurch, what were they most fearful of? For at least 5 years prior to that attack, they were frightened of an Islamic attack prior to Ramadan. So prior to the time of Ramadan, they were frightened of an Islamic attack by ISIS. Now, I'm starting to put join the dots, and I'm saying, well, if Tarrant can go to Turkey and you have these tourist agencies saying, don't go to Turkey, stay out of Turkey, that's a warning for Westerners because of kidnappings, killings, and there's a revolution going on there. Westerners are not safe. But Tarrant was safe. Who did he stay with there? Who was he in cahoots with to be a Westerner who was so safe, who went back and forth there and stayed there for 42 days when Westerners were being warned this is a very, very dangerous place to be? So, yeah, that's my take on it, people, so far. And and the other thing is about right-wing extremism, that prior to the attacks, the police were looking at Islamic extremism. There was not that sign of the Islamophobia, alt-right, and that in New Zealand, but they did say prior to those attacks, there was a slight warning of it. Well, that slight warning of it was when the police had their cameras in my face in Aotea Square when I objected to the UN Global Compact of Migration in December 2018. And I was highly targeted by Byron Clark, the Workers' Socialist Party. Now, the police cameras in my face, and leaving after I'd given a speech about freedom of speech, and I was going back to the car park, I hear the shouting behind me. I look behind, about 10 police officers standing there, and several of them are shouting at me to go home now. So, yeah. And then Clark, writing this book, authoring this book, Fear, mentioning my name as many as others, saying that I was to do with reference to me to the great replacement theory, etc., and having a meeting with a group of Muslim women in Christchurch, indicating that I actually inspired those mosque attacks. So I actually reported it to the Human Rights Commission, but nothing, absolutely nothing. Evidently, he can do what he likes. No one scrutinizes Baron Clark in the mainstream media because he is authoring articles in the mainstream media. He has targeted those grieving who have family members who have been seriously harmed by the jab. He is now targeting those that actually supported my submission to Parliament in 2018 opposing the UN Global Compact, and it was for the reasons laid out that mental health was actually falling over, and actually Ardern had given a speech to say it was falling over. Our housing situation was seen as a crisis. There was a lack of housing. Hospitals there was a problem there, not enough teachers. And for me, if you can't look after your own, why would you take in people from other countries that you're going to have to use taxpayer money on them? And that means that, of course, the people within the country, New Zealanders, would have to go without in one way or another. We couldn't afford it. And now we have the largest migration last year. Since 1960, I have heard figures 140,000, 150,000, 180,000. Who knows? Who knows? Do you really trust Stats New Zealand, the government department? Who knows? How do I know what is happening there? Well, you had migration officers who were checking, assessing at the border visa applications around residency, students, work. And they were told to ignore criminal histories, do not investigate, don't take any notice of warnings, take them on face value, get as many through as possible. And no one has taken responsibility for that. I have the names. I want to know why no one was taking responsibility for that. So therefore, we don't know who is in our country and who is not. What happened there was open borders for everyone, and it didn't matter who. So just recently, talk about Islamic radical terrorism. It's only recently, over the last month or few weeks, that the government, the cabinet, have actually named or documented Hamas as a terrorist organization. But they don't talk about the Palestinian Popular Liberation Front, the PFLP, who actually accompanied Hamas on the 7th of October last year into Israel, where they made those horrific attacks and kidnappings on civilians there. So they are not brought to task yet. The PFLP is a designated terrorist organization in Japan, EU countries, UK, Australia, America, Canada, but not in New Zealand. So I have to wonder why not. In the 1960s, 70s, they hijacked commercial airliners. They killed passengers. They kidnapped a whole passengers in an airliner and flew them to Africa. Look at the TWA hijacking of the airplane in France. So no, that's not all. It's using children as war weapons. The many attacks against Israel. And yet another group, terrorist group, funded by Iran and other investments across the world. But we are not talking about this. We will not. The government has not designated the PFLP as a terrorist organization. Why? Is it because they have Islamic teachings? They are terrorists, but they follow and implement socialist ideologies, and Muslim leaders say by doing this makes them more spiritual. And that's what they say. And still, I am sure the government knows that this is a terrorist organization and what horrific things they do, like hacking to death Jewish worshippers in a synagogue, civilians, killing a couple of Americans and other foreigners from outside Israel. So it's not just Jewish alone. So it's bad enough it is Jewish, but it's not just Jewish alone. So in New Zealand, we had the Workers' Socialist Party, key significant co-author of publications with Byron Clark, who is now authoring articles for mainstream media, giving workshops, targeting those that oppose climate change, have targeted those against jabs, has targeted those against anything possible that it was against the government's narrative up to the time this government took over. And when this government took over, he started running workshops to target those who do not believe in this man-made global warming. And that's what he does. Now, a couple of mates of his from the Workers' Party, the Socialist Workers' Party, Christchurch, have established what is the Canterbury Socialist Society, where they are hosting meetings, and that's been reported in independent media, of course. Chris Lynch reported it. Chris Lynch Media, where they have held meetings, hosted meetings with using KIWI'S, a Palestinian Islamic poster child, a terrorist that was very influential in actually hijacking planes, kidnapping passengers, and killing passengers on commercial airliners. And that's their poster child. And those couple of members who have established this new group, the Canterbury, it's been going, I think, a couple of years now, the Canterbury Socialist Society. Well, those couple of members were influential with Byron Clark in advertising T-shirts for sale for the profits to go to the terrorist group PFLP. And now they're asking for solidarity with the PFLP throughout New Zealand. And they feel they can do this because our government has not, for some reason, ever designated the PFLP as a terrorist group as other countries have. Why? So I have written to Parliament questioning this. This is a serious question because through this Canterbury Socialist Society and Aotearoa Socialist group, what you can see happening is the escalation that you see overseas where they are supporting Islamic terrorist groups. And there's no stopping this in New Zealand if the government do not designate this group, PFLP, as a terrorist group. Excuse me. So that is where I am at with that. So, yes, wake up, New Zealand. We need to wake up because we are far away on the other side of the world. Don't have a false sense of security of what you can see overseas will never happen in New Zealand. We are vulnerable. Believe me, we are vulnerable, particularly when migration officers who left their job went to the RNZ to tell them that New Zealand immigration was letting migrants through with criminal history, not investigating, not taking notice of warning notices, and however much they complained to their hierarchy, they said, just let it pass, just let it pass as quickly as possible. Never mind. Come on, New Zealand, wake up.